Well, hello there. Today's lesson is going to be about nouns. Nouns are people, place, things, and sometimes ideas. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky lesson, and I hope that you're just willing to trust me and accept what I'm going to tell you. Here we go. The learning objectives for this lesson are that you will be able to explain the gender of nouns in Spanish, identify how to determine the gender of a noun in Spanish, and no, it's not anything dirty. State the four differences between definite and state the difference between definite and indefinite articles, and change nouns from singular to plural. It's a gender thing. Nouns, remember, people, yes, have gender, but places, things, and ideas in Spanish also have a gender. And that's kind of the thing that you just need to be willing to accept. So a noun, a thing, a place, an idea can be masculine or it can be feminine. And it has nothing to do with if it's a more boy thing or a girl thing. It's just given, think of the word itself having a gender. For example, a book is a boy, a chair is a girl. There's no reason for it, you just have to be willing to accept it. If you can accept that, then you can move on. But if you need a minute to think about it, please, take a minute to think about it. If you can accept it, move on with me. Okay, so how are we going to tell if a noun is masculine or feminine? Well, the one simple rule that a lot of people like to follow are that masculine nouns often end in O, and feminine nouns often end in A. But there are some other rules that you can follow to figure out if the noun is masculine or feminine, because of course there are going to be exceptions to those rules, and not all nouns end in either O or A. Some nouns end in other letters, and there has to be another way to tell. So most of the time, nouns that end in L or R are masculine. Like papel, paper, is masculine. El papel. Or I can't think of one that ends in R right now. Most of the time, nouns that end in D or ción are feminine. La libertad, liberty, ends in D and is feminine. La lección ends in ción and it's the lesson. La lección is feminine. Most of the time, nouns ending in ema or eta are masculine, and that's kind of tricky because if you notice, ema and eta both end in A, and that was something I just told you. Usually those are feminine nouns. So let me just say that the reason for those is because they're from the Greek roots, like sistema, the system is el sistema, or el planeta, the planet, eta, planeta, is masculine also. And of course, just like everything that you'll find in this class and pretty much life itself, is that there's always going to be exceptions to the rules. So I could sit here and say you need to commit all of these rules to memory, and when you encounter a noun, a person, place, or a thing in Spanish, you need to know if it is masculine or feminine based on these rules. But there has to be a foolproof way. It's much more simple than memorizing, well, if it ends in this, and if it has that, or if it's from Greek. Those are all secondary rules. I'm going to show you one way to determine foolproof every time if a noun is masculine or feminine. And the best way to do it is learning the article. The article is the el or la, los or las, that you'll see come before the noun in the dictionary or in your vocab lists, or a lot of times when you see nouns written in sentences and in conversation, you'll hear or see an el or a la, los or las before it. The meaning of el, la, los, or las is the chair, la silla, el gato, the cat. So if you pay attention to the articles, remember the articles are el, la, los, and las, and all four of those mean the, then you'll be able to know exceptions, know nothing funky to remember. You'll be able to tell if the noun is masculine or feminine. So, el is the masculine article. So if there is an el before the noun, like el gato that I just mentioned, the cat is masculine. La is the feminine article. La silla, the chair, feminine. And then when the noun is plural, the articles also have to become plural. So el becomes los. Los carros, the cars, are masculine. Las chicas, la becomes las when it's plural. Las chicas is feminine, the girls. Even though in English we don't change the when we're talking about singular or plural, the car, the cars, we don't change the article. In Spanish you do. So the articles give us a ton of information about the noun that we're talking about. It tells us if it's singular or plural, and it also tells us if it's masculine or feminine. So instead of telling you that you need to memorize all of these rules about nouns and how to tell if they're masculine or feminine, I think it's easier when you learn a new word in Spanish to also learn the article that goes with it. So in your vocabulary lists, the articles should be accompanying the nouns. And if they don't accompany the nouns, you can go back to the list of rules on the previous slide and say, okay, does it end in this? Does it end in that? And most of the time, including in the dictionary, if it doesn't follow the rule, it will specify that. But if it does follow the rule, a lot of times they won't put the article. But I encourage you, when you learn a new word, every new word you learn, go ahead and memorize the article. That way, later on, you already know. And there is a reason that we need to know the gender, and I'm going to talk about that next. But first, before we move on, are you accepting this? It's kind of a different thing. We don't have it in English. But you need to just trust me. You need to know if the nouns that you're using, the words that you're using in Spanish, are masculine or feminine, because it changes the way that we construct our sentences and talk about these words. It sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. If you just learn the articles, el, la, los, or las, and how to make them masculine, feminine, and singular, plural, and which one goes with the noun that you're talking about, it'll be pretty simple. So, also, nouns in Spanish can sometimes be singular when you're talking about just one, or plural. And this is just a simple explanation of how to make nouns from singular to plural. You just add an S most of the time. But also, like I was just explaining, the article needs to change from singular to plural. So el becomes los and la becomes las when your noun becomes plural. So here are some ejemplos. Ejemplos are examples. La casa becomes las casas. La calculadora becomes las calculadoras. El pupitre becomes los pupitres. El apartamento, los apartamentos. So far, so good, right? That's pretty simple to accept. There's, of course, some more things you should know. If a noun ends in a consonant, and if you're not sure what a consonant is, it's all the letters in the alphabet that aren't the vowels, A, E, I, O, or U, we add ES to make it plural, and I think we do something similar in English. So el papel becomes los papeles, not los papels, papeles, and every vowel in the word gets pronounced. Los papeles. El examen becomes los exámenes. And then for nouns ending in an, es, or ion, drop the accent before adding es to the end of the word. So, la lección, it becomes las lecciones, and notice there's no accent in the plural form. El alemán, los alemanes. No accent. Rules, rules, rules. Okay. Articles, remember that's the before the noun, can be definite or indefinite. And this is just a lot of fancy words. So let's try to take the fancy words out of it and explain it as simply as possible. El, la, los, and las are the definite articles. We just talked about those. And they all mean the. Un, una, unos, and unas are the indefinite articles. If you think of indefinite, it means it's not a defined amount. It's more than, we don't know. So the indefinite articles in Spanish, when they're singular, are a, and when they're plural, some. We don't know how many. So la clase, the class. Una clase, a class. If it was plural, unas clases, some classes. El profesor, the teacher. Unos profesores, some teachers. Los dulces, the candies. Unos dulces, some candies. So notice that the indefinite articles are masculine and feminine also. Uno, una, unas, and un. I didn't do those in order, but I think you get it. So what else? Now it's time to check yourself. And this was there was a lot in this lesson, so you may need to go back through. But before you move on, you should be able to determine if a noun is masculine or feminine, even if you don't know why. And that goes back to stop trying to justify it. Stop trying to figure out why a chair is feminine and a book is masculine. Just, can you say it's masculine or feminine? Can you state the difference between definite and indefinite articles? Can you state the different articles and know when to use which one? And can you change nouns from singular to plural? When you feel like you've got this down, then you can move on to the next one. Adios.